Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
For some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
From Rufino's on Highland Road, welcome to the Friday edition of Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Charles Hannegriff, Jimmy Ott will be joining us remotely here in the first segment. He has most of the day off. Max Gautreaux, Jordan Kinchin's back in the studio. We got a jam-packed show for you today. Chris Massaro will be with us. Troy Mack will be with us. Bruce Marshall, Ace Seminary will be giving us some picks on the Sweet 16 over the weekend, plus some baseball picks. And former LSU coach John Brady will join us at 12:15 and give us his thoughts on Will Wade coming back as the head basketball coach at LSU. So we got a lot to do. Let's get right to it. We're here at Rufino's on Highland Road, our back to our usual Friday location after spending a week down at Bally's for the NCAA tournament last week. Let's bring Jimmy in as we talk about the official, I guess, Will Wade announcement coming in yesterday afternoon. Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie, and our friends over at Total Maintenance. Before we get caught up on time and things like that, at Total Maintenance, doing the Willie Wade special, man, a free clean. A clean and check, normally $229. You call us today, right now, the first 10 callers, 480-1000, get it for just $79. So there you go, the Willie Wade special. Already paying dividends, Charlie.
Already getting money out. I mean, I don't know how much. I know you were traveling yesterday. I don't know how much chance you got to see the video, him at the airport, the welcoming committee. Yeah. He looked to me, this is maybe just my read, pretty emotional about this. This was a homecoming, and I realize, he didn't grow up here, but he talked about it in his statement about, coming home, and I thought it was kind of an emotional thing for him. The people at NC State are going to, blow that off. They're just going to, say what they say, but I thought he was pretty emotional looking when he got out that plane yesterday.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that the first person to meet him was Verge Osbury. So, I mean, that's probably the last person of that group that was, but he gets credit for it. We talked about that yesterday, but it was funny that because he was part of the group that, was kind of, preventing this from happening a year ago. The, John Carmouche out there, Roos, yeah, I mean, the new basketball, AD, assistant AD. I mean, no, it's and I know that it's not just somebody. The wife really is excited about coming back to Baton Rouge as well. So, in the end, I think he could have handled some things differently. He not just in Raleigh, Chapel Hill, but everywhere he's getting beat up, and in LSU. But like we said, from an LSU perspective, it is such a home run. And he's also leaving. He's leaving for more money. He's leaving for a bigger budget. He's leaving for a longer-term deal. I mean, more economic stability as far as within the athletic department. So the whole thing. I mean, it's win, 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 win across the board. So, I don't think that Charlie, without the administrative shifting, that he would have had the confidence to pull the trigger on this as well.
Yeah, that was part of the kind of the whole deal about is this going to happen? A lot of things had to line up, and it was. There was some uncertainty. I think as recently as just a few days ago.
Let me ask you, if Woodward takes him back last year, is he still in his position?
No, I think that no. I think that the Brian Kelly thing was. it was a deal breaker. I put it this way: I think that the Wade situation kind of set him up to be, to be the fall guy if things went bad in football. But I think it was, put it this way: if Brian Kelly would have made the playoffs last year, Scott Woodward would still be here, and so would Brian Kelly, regardless of what happened with the basketball program. So no, I don't think. No, I don't. I think the football was I think the football was the hammer on Woodward. The basketball was sort of the sidelight.
I think it alerted the administration or the board, the governor, who else. I mean, that maybe the first chance they had, they might have gotten rid of it. So anyway, it would have changed things, but.
I think that the governor and the former athletic director weren't exactly frying fish before the end of last basketball season. They were not chummy before that, so it certainly didn't help. But no, I don't think he would. To answer your question, let's get to the games from last night, and we had a great game with Purdue and Texas. We had a really sloppy, I thought, offensive performance from Houston in essentially a home game for them. But the game I want to start with is Nebraska and Iowa because, Jimmy, the Cornhuskers led this thing for the majority of the game. Use a horse racing analogy. They got out of the gate quick, and they led all the way into the middle of the stretch, and then Iowa turned it on at the end. And a very uncharacteristic mistake, kind of a Hoosiers moment where up 3, Nebraska only has Iowa up 3 and trying to inbound the basketball, and Nebraska gets caught with 4 players on the floor, and Iowa gets a run out and gets a bucket and a foul. So your thoughts on we were texting just at that point. Fred Hoiberg has had a phenomenal year at Nebraska, a historic year for that university. First ever wins in the NCAA tournament. That breakdown was surprising. Yeah, that breakdown was so. And I don't know that Nebraska would have won the game anyway. Probably not. I would have gotten the ball inbounds and made a free throw or two and won the game anyway. But that was surprising at the end.
Yeah, it didn't. I don't think it decided the game. I think the game had already been decided, and Nebraska just couldn't distance themselves. Although they led, Iowa's first lead was with 2 minutes to go in the game. I mean, you're talking about grabbing you at the wire, coming off the pace, in a horse race. I mean, this was it. Both teams at half were shooting well over 50%. And, Charlie, we got our college basketball version of Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, a guy that was not highly recruited, a guy that had to really earn his stripes at a very low level. And once he got his chance, he's leading his team to some special things, Point guard is the quarterback position in the basketball court. And Brandon Kurtz, in these 3 games, these 3 wins for Iowa, has played all 40 minutes, all of them. The last 2 games, the game against Florida and the game last night against Nebraska, he has a grand total of 0 turnovers while playing the entire game. Remember,
That's amazing.
It was him who, they got the ball on the run with 8.9 seconds to go down 2 against Florida and got the assist, for the guy. And not only did he pass it, but he instructed the guy to pull it, from the right corner in that game. And once again, 0 turnovers, and just Nebraska was shooting the lights out, over 60% from the floor at halftime. Iowa was over 50%, but just leading this program. Now they've been to the Final Four before, but I think you got to go back to 1980. I'm not sure about that, but it's he's just really, really his IQ. Running that point, an extension of the coach. He's just making so many good decisions, and the best players make the guys around him better. He is not an A-cuff type of highlight type of material guy, and that's probably why he wasn't recruited heavily. But, man, I could tell you, he can play. He can really play, and just keeps them so together. And, he and his coach has been together every step of the way. So, but that's the biggest one I take. This kid is really, really playing at such a high level.
The one surprise to me, maybe the biggest surprise to me last night was Houston's belly flop. And I know you and I agree on this. When you are not hitting shots, what is the best thing to do is to try to go to the goal, to try to get inside. If nothing else, get to the foul line. Jimmy, the most shocking stat of everything last night, other than Nebraska at one point having 4 players on the floor, Houston went to the free throw line twice last night. Now, they couldn't hit a shot to save their life, and I kept waiting. I'm like, surely they're going to start pounding the ball inside and at least try to get to the free throw line. If you'd have told me that Houston was going to shoot 2 free throws last night, I said there's absolutely no way. So that was a huge surprise to me in that last game.
But remember when we broke it down, we talked about how Illinois, not only are they number one offensive efficiency team, but they're also one of the leaders in fewest fouls committed. And if you remember at the end of the half, before Fleming hit the three-pointer, they intentionally fouled like 4 times, just trying to eat away at that shot clock. They just don't foul, but you still have to attack the rim. It was, I tell you, one team that didn't have a problem attacking the rim. It was a layup fest for Illinois against Arkansas's defense. But yes, and this team was so much more explosive. This Houston team, there was so much more firepower. Offensively, the 2 guards that returned. I mean, those are experienced guys that come back. The freshman who scored 40 points one game. And I thought they weathered the storm. Like getting that thing to 2 at half, playing so bad, playing so poorly. And the one thing that I was really wrong on this thing was how it is officiated. You just talked about. They let them play. Let them play, and Houston still got beat handily. That's the thing that really floored me.
I didn't see anything out of Arizona last night that is going to move me off my pick for them to win the national championship. Jimmy, when I was visiting with John Brady this morning, getting him on the show, and we talked a little bit about that game, he says, Arkansas's got 3 pros, including Acuff, who's going to be a very, very high pick, and they still got beat by 21. That Arizona team right now, I got a hard time seeing them losing.
To quote the young Frenchman from the San Antonio Spurs, defense is 50% of the game, and they are Alabama light. They're so bad on defense. We talk about it. How many, the perimeter shots will come and go. Some teams are better at it. Some looks are higher quality than others. But the easy buckets, how many easy buckets can we get, and how many easy buckets can we limit our opponents to? It was layup after layup after layup over and over and over. And this is a team, we talked about this. This is where they were. Keep in mind, it was a 2-point game on the last media timeout against Vanderbilt in the SEC final. They shot 62% from 3. You shoot 62% from 3 for the game, you should not be a 1-possession game in the last media timeout. So it was going to catch up with them, and it finally did. High Point hit some, really some tough shots along the way as well, but they were just giving up so many points. It was putting a lot of pressure. Acuff can only do so much, but Charlie, when you're giving up layups like that, that's just no contest. They might be projected pros, but they're not close to the team that Arizona is right now. And the other thing, and they got Pringle back for some minutes last night, but they're not as deep. Acuff did everything he could to keep this team going, but they're just, after Florida, who was the best? I thought that Arkansas could be that team. I thought they would be that team because I thought Alabama was even weaker than them defensively. But I guess the question, and Alabama's going to run into it eventually too, I think it's a very similar matchup with Michigan tonight, and they're going to get a lot of easy buckets. They've got a huge size advantage, and they're so much better defensively than Alabama, even though Alabama without Holloway has improved defensively. I think a similar type of result might happen in that game tonight.
You better keep that opinion to yourself while you're watching that game. You might not, it might not be very popular. All right, before we let you go, enjoy your weekend. Give us your picks for tonight for the games.
I like St. John's. I love Patino in this situation. You know they're going to bang you. Having the point guard out for Duke has just brought them back to earth a little bit. They have not looked good. That game could have been much closer than it actually was against TCU had they not gotten a favorable whistle as well. And I think they're gonna grind it out. I think it's gonna be a great atmosphere in DC, but I'll take the 7 points in St. John's. Also, kind of like the under in that one. I'm going to take Izzo. Both of these coaches are outstanding, in the tournament. But Izzo, I'll go with his team in this matchup with some two heavyweight coaches who both have national championship rings. And then I think that's going to be too tough for Iowa State Star to come back. I'll take Tennessee in the points. They are playing. They are recommitted on the defensive end. So I like that. And so that's what we're looking at tonight.
Enjoy your weekend, Jimmy. We'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, one more time, Charlie. Again, call 480-1000, 480-1000. It's not a joke. It's the first 10 callers, normally $229. Get that cleaning deal done, that AC cleaning, normally $229 for just $79. Call Total Maintenance at 480-1000. Thank you, Charlie.
All right, appreciate it. Jimmy will be back with us on Monday, enjoying a weekend at the university with his son. We are here at Rufino's. Friday lunch appetizer features the beef egg rolls with the honey mustard, lobster raviola with the New Orleans-style barbecue butter. Entree features today include the pan-seared grouper with the butternut squash puree, which is outstanding. I can highly recommend that. Grilled pork chops with the crawfish risotto and the grilled asparagus. And our beverage feature, our wine feature today, our beverage feature today is the Winter in Lombardi. Let Barry the bartender help you out here at Rufino's. Come on by and see us here on Highland Road. Live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Remember, you can always get the show on demand, 1045ESPN.com, LouisianaSports.net, and Handycast on YouTube. Brought to you by Supreme Rice, celebrating 90 years in business here in 2026. For more information, great recipes, go to SupremeRice.com. Bring in our friend Chris Macero. Chris, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Jimmy's got the day off. He's visiting with his son on campus today. So me and Max are holding down the fort. Biggest takeaway for you from last night's 4-pack of games that pushed these teams into the Elite Eight?
Well, I'm happy to say I was on Illinois, and I think they didn't even play well, and they completely dominated a Houston team that was expected to make it through that region based on the fact that they had the prior experience. It was Kelvin Sampson's time. They had a home game pretty much. And if you had made a couple free throws and maybe one or maybe half of the missed putbacks in the early portion of that game, I mean, they really could have won by 20 points. They didn't even shoot the three that good. I expected Illinois to win. I didn't think it was going to be that easy. You know, they dominated on the glass. They dominated defensively. They dominated points in the paint. And I think they're probably the biggest threat to either Arizona or Michigan moving forward. I took a little sliver at them yesterday at plus 1650 and plus 1600 to win the whole thing as I lost my Florida futures in that bracket. So I was really impressed with Illinois. If Brad Underwood could stay out of the way. And those guys, I thought they were a little nervous to begin the game, maybe a little bit intimidated by the tough play at Houston. But once that game got going, second half, Illinois looked like probably one of the best teams in the country.
You know, Max pointed out a comment in our comment section from somebody who was in the Toyota Center last night that said it was not in any way a home game for Houston from the size of the crowd, and that's what it looked like on TV too. So it was interesting to get the perspective of somebody that was there. There were more Nebraska fans, it seemed like, than any of the four teams in there last night. And I know this is their first ever trip to the Sweet 16, but no, I was surprised. I thought Houston would have that home court advantage, and it really didn't play out that way. And Illinois really handled them. On the other side, the last play of the game for Purdue, Texas gave them all they wanted. Purdue length of the floor, and then they get a tip in pretty much at the horn to win that one. In Arizona cruise. I'm not sure what side you had in those two.
Well, Arizona's a good one for me. That's my best remaining future left. I really need them to make the Final Four. That would solve a lot of problems for me. If they win the whole thing, even better. The Purdue game, I was on the over, and I was on Purdue team total over. It was 77.5, so if it went to overtime, I was going to get it. But the tip-in did get me the team total over. I just felt, and I mentioned this with Max earlier, we did a Bet Rivers show on Tuesday, just that the fact that Texas doesn't defend the three, and you could tell that Matt Painter had a great game plan. Unlike Mark Few, who just didn't shoot enough threes, Purdue was kicking out everything for three because Texas packs it in. They allow a lot of wide-open three-point shots, and that's why they were hitting everything early. And I really thought that, there was a couple areas where the game really slowed down, but overall it was a way-over game. It got a little dicey down the end, but we got there, and the tip-in got me there. I was actually surprised that Kaufman-Wren, he wasn't involved as much as I would have thought he would be involved. I just think they're going to have a lot of trouble going up against Arizona. I think Arizona is just too big, too strong, too many athletes, too many NBA. I mean, what do they got? 3 or 4 NBA players on the court at all times. So I think that's going to be tough. I'm actually surprised the spread is only 6. I made it 8.5. So I don't need to be on Arizona, but if I was going to play a bet in that game, it would be Arizona.
All right, let's move to tonight's games. 4 more to get to the Elite 8, starting out with St. John's and Duke, and the late game is Tennessee and Iowa State, and we are still waiting. It's game time decision on Joshua Jefferson, Iowa State's second leading scorer.
Yeah, quick on that game. I only played under Tennessee team total. I just think it's going to be a really slow-paced game. I know Iowa State without Jefferson is going to have to be really, really dialed in defensively. We've all watched Tennessee's offense all year. It can be painful to watch. I played it under 66.5. I don't have a play in the game. I do have some futures on Iowa State, so I prefer that they win, hopefully get Jefferson back. But I just feel like it's going to be a really ugly rock fight type of game. Hopefully Tennessee stays under the team total.
And any of the other games, the Johnnies and Duke, the first game tonight?
Yeah, so I played St. John's +7. I just feel like there's going to be so much pressure on the Boozer brother, who's all of a sudden the point guard. We saw what St. John's did to Kansas. 19 turnovers. Kansas was having trouble even inbounding the ball. And we saw how Duke wasn't feeling their offensive flow without the point guard, Caleb Foster. He's not coming back. I just think that this St. John's defense, Patino's strategy, they're going to have something dialed up to really mess with Duke, trying to pressure the ball. I think maybe we'll see some full court press. We'll see if they can disrupt them, some turnovers. And I think Zuby Ejiofor is a tough matchup for Cam Boozer. He's a grown man, big body, defensive player of the year in the Big East. He's having a great season. That's not going to be an easy matchup for Boozer. You got grown men, Bryce Hopkins, Ejiofor, going up against a bunch of young guys with Duke. And I know we said that, Duke's been the number 1 power-rated team. They're the number 1 overall seed. It's not the same team as last year, and I've maintained this statement the whole year. You didn't win it last year. I don't think they're going to win it this year. Patino, 12-1 straight up in the Sweet 16. I like St. John's plus the points, and I think St. John's gets the victory.
And either of the middle games, Alabama, Michigan, or Michigan State, UConn, any thoughts on either one of those?
I agree with what you and Jimmy were saying earlier. I think Michigan is the same situation as Arizona, too big, too strong down low. We know Alabama doesn't play much defense. I think Michigan gets the win. I don't want to lay the points. I have them in futures. I think they get the job done. They probably cover, but it's tough laying Michigan because they turn the ball over so much. Very frustrating. Cadeau sometimes is very erratic and very loose with the ball. I think Michigan gets the job done. I think they probably cover, but I'm not going to lay the points just because they have the futures. I do like Michigan State. I don't think this UConn team, I mean, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. They're just not shooting the ball well. They shot 20% for three versus Furman. Going back to the regular season, 16% versus St. John's, 32% versus Georgetown in the Big East tournament. They only shot 33% versus UCLA. You know, they had a big game down low because Villanova wasn't playing for UCLA. So I think Michigan State, tough defensive team. They get some big boys down low. They're going to force UConn to shoot the three, and they just haven't shot it well. Solo Ball couldn't throw it in the ocean last week. He got pretty much benched. He was 0 for 6 from 3. I think getting 1.5, getting 2 points with Michigan State, I think Michigan State wins it outright. I know Hurley has great stats against the spread, but again, this isn't the same team that won the national championship with a bunch of NBA players. I think Michigan State gets the job done against UConn.
I'm back up on an Alabama-Michigan game. I feel exactly about that game the way I felt about Arkansas and Arizona last night. That game is going to – I felt like the game was going to go well over the total. It did. I feel the same way about Alabama and Michigan. I'm not going to fool with the side either, but this total is even taller than the big total from last night, and I still think they're going over that 172.5 is what we got here at our local outlet at Bally's and the Queen. So that's where I'm at on that game. We'll watch them run up and down. I think Michigan wins as well, but I think that they're going to go over that total.
I couldn't argue with you. We were sitting in the sports book last night, and we were looking at the Arizona game, and my friend was like, "I think I'm going to get the over." I'm like, "Yeah, you need 2 points with 8 minutes to go. I think you got it." So I can see a similar situation because Bama doesn't change their strategy. Like, I don't think they have an exciting team. They shoot a lot of threes. They can catch the team. They can catch the right team at the right moment and upset anyone. But they just never change their strategy defensively. And I don't think you can win an NCAA tournament winning 6 games that way, especially against a team like Michigan that plays defense, is going to get all the long rebounds because they're so long down low. So I agree with that. Michigan probably wins, probably covers. I would lean towards the over as well.
Chris, thanks for joining us as always. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Take care.
And we are here at Ruffino's. We're brought to you by Coastal Capital Advisors because when it comes to retirement, look, everybody's situation is different. Where you are in life, what's your age, what's your income level. Your plan needs to be tailor-made for your family. That's why we went to Coastal Capital Advisors, sat down with Phil Fontenot and his staff, map out a plan. The last thing you want is to get to retirement age and have any surprises. So map out a plan. What do you want to accomplish with your retirement goals? When do you want to retire? How much do you need to retire? What are your goals? They'll set them all out for you. They'll get you on a plan. It's going to – look, it's about peace of mind and knowing that you're going in the right direction and how you're going to get there so when that day of retirement does finally come, you are prepared. Go to Coastal Capital ADV to set up an appointment. Ask for Phil Fontenot. Tell him you heard about it here on Live at Lunch. They're going to take care of you. They've done a fantastic job for our family. We'll come back. We'll talk with Troy Macker from Bet Rivers live at Ruffino's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Otten Hanny from Ruffino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Jimmy, Charlie, and Troy. 3 best buddies sitting around talking sports bets. Let's welcome in Troy Macker from Bet Rivers.
I return here at Ruffino's. Come by and see us for lunch. The lobster ravioli, highly recommended here if you're observing Lent here on Friday. The lobster ravioli is outstanding. The pan-seared grouper with the butternut squash puree also on today's special menu. Troy, good morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's talk about how the book made out last night. Where was the action on the Sweet 16 last night?
Heaviest action was on Arizona to win and to cover. And the over on that game. You know, there's been a big discussion topic, across different platforms and social media about this tournament has been bet really to the under. And that's something that public bettors are not used to across all sports. Everyone likes betting on the over. They like betting on more points. Well, most games have been bet on the under. Specifically, the Purdue game last night was heavy on the under. I think that went over. But in the Arizona game, Arkansas, the Calipari coach team, plays at a very fast pace. Arizona can score with the best of them. And people were very strong on Arizona, which is slightly surprising only because of Arkansas's performance at the SEC tournament, the rise of Darius Acuff from, late lottery pick to top 5 lottery pick, being the next great guard that John Calipari has coached. But Arizona is a wagon. They're the best team in the country, in my opinion. I have them winning the national championship. I thought the money would be a little bit more split, but, we took a mid-six-figure loss on that game. I believe it's the biggest loss we've taken all tournament, if not the second biggest. We took a big win on Purdue. It's a bit surprising. And Houston, Illinois, we took a big win as well. People were really backing Houston. The identity of that program is just so strong. Slow-paced game. It was in the 20s or teens at halftime. But this team isn't as good as the last couple of years. Certainly, I think their best player is better this year in Kingston Fleming. But Illinois is a very difficult matchup. Most efficient offense in the country, great length in the interior, and doesn't play, fly-in-a-line style. They play slow as hell. And I think people, look at these Illinois teams who are getting really low unders and keep backing you over in last night, just no chance. And Houston overs are a bit higher than they were last year. Houston was a team that was playing in the 120s, 119, I remember seeing 2 years ago. And I think people are still betting like that, even though that's not the case. But still back to Arizona, Arkansas. It's very good to see the public pick up a very large win on that one.
Two things surprised me about that Houston-Illinois game, Troy. Number one, that Houston got virtually no home court advantage. The crowd was not in their favor, despite the fact that the game was at the Toyota Center. And the second one was that the Cougars did not look, Illinois does a great job of playing defense without fouling, but 2 free throws. I thought Houston would attack the goal more. They couldn't hit an outside shot to save their life, and I thought that at some point they would attack the rim more. They only got to the free throw line twice last night, which that blew my mind, that they were not more physical and try to get to the goal a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if I were to be a head coach, one of my key philosophies at the very top of the list would be early on, we have to establish post presence and get our big man working, so that will collapse the paint and open up people outside. But also, if you're playing a team with a lot of size inside and quality talent inside, attack the rim early and often, get those guys into foul trouble, get into the bonus early. And Houston is such a physical team, you figured they'd be able to. Kingston Fleming is great driving to the lane. I was surprised by that, too. And you figure they'd get maybe a home whistle being there. But, I'm also very surprised at how little of a home court advantage that played in. I think Nebraska and Iowa both got home court advantages on the same court. Their fans were so good. But, this Illinois team, I had my doubts about just consistency and being able to see through to the finish here and not have a mental hiccup. And I'm very happy that they're still alive because this team is very, very, very good.
All right, let's move on to tonight's action. 4 more games to set up the Elite Eight. Where's the action trending on tonight's 4 games?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is backing St. John's or fading Duke or both. But there is a lot of money and a lot of tickets on the Johnnies to cover. So most wagered on play thus far is the Johnnies to cover, even though there are more tickets on Duke to win outright. But in the play I really, really, really like is the under in this game. Both very efficient defensive teams. One thing you have to remember about with casino teams is they're going to press. They're going to get up in your face right as soon as you inbound the ball. Duke is already a very slow team. They don't play to the over. They are an aggressive under team. And so they're going to have even less time to operate. And you know what they're going to try to do, work the ball in the paint, get a boozer. So I love the under in this game. And it's one of those where even if it does go over, I have so much conviction with the stats and the eye test that this is a play I feel very strongly about. Duke, as we mentioned even before the Siena game, they're banged up. They didn't have a lot of depth to begin with, and they didn't have a lot of size. Duby Ejiofor is amazing for St. John's. I don't know who's going to win the game. I do think it's very close. But I would lean St. John's to cover, but Duke second half, even when you think they're about to get themselves into a pickle, they rally late. And that's something you can't really teach even with a short bench. So I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Both the games in my backyard in D.C. are going to be slogs. UConn, Michigan State, I think, could be a tough watch, but a a very entertaining watch because of the characters, because of the talent, because of the programs. But if you want to parlay the under in both of those games in DC, I wouldn't push you away from that.
Well, if you need to borrow some points, go to Alabama and Michigan. There'll be plenty. Just switch to the other game at the United Center. I think they're going to get up and down pretty good. Yeah, my sister-in-law went to Duke, went to graduate school at Duke. I'm inviting her to watch Duke lose men's and women's games back to back tonight because the Duke women play LSU. She didn't like that comment very much when I made it to her. So I'm rooting for the Johnnies tonight. Let's move to the games on Saturday and an early look. We're looking right now at matching 6.5-point lines. Arizona favored over Purdue. Illinois favored over Iowa. When Illinois and Iowa played back in January in the regular season, the Illini won that game by 6. The line pretty close to that. What's the early action, the early look at the Elite Eight games on Saturday?
Yeah, it's pretty even money right now. At least on the money line, it's leaning towards Illinois. But on the spread, right now we have 58% of the tickets on Illinois and 60% of the money on Illinois to cover as well at that number of 6.5. It's early lean to the over from the public with about 70% of both money and tickets. But I think that's standard, as I mentioned. That number will come down definitely. Arizona-Purdue is super fascinating. I think Arizona could win by 20. I also think they could lose by 3 or 4. Purdue I've had my doubts about them. I did not think they were the best team entering the season. I faded them aggressively on the spread. They were incapable of covering at home for some reason in a great arena. They have been excellent at neutral court this year. Even before the tournament, even before the Big Ten tournament, they were one of the best teams on a neutral court this year in terms of results and efficiency in those games. And they're playing so well right now. The front court's playing well. Braden Smith has figured out who he is. They're getting big shots from Lawyer, and I think they pose a real threat. That being said, as I mentioned before, Arizona's the best team in the country. They're so deep. They're so talented. They have big men. They have guards. They have power players inside. Their coach is amazing. I think 6.5 is a good number. I probably won't bet on that one until it's live. And I'd probably take the under 151.5. I think, we're getting down to it. These games are going to be slow, and the possessions are going to matter more. And that last 2 minutes is going to last 90 minutes. So, if you weren't already on the unders, I lean towards the unders, especially anything over 150 now, just because of the tournament setting.
Purdue was close 2 years ago when the Zach Edey team. Is this the year for Matt Payne? They got to beat a really, really good team. Arizona's my choice to win the national title as well. So we'll see. Follow him, Troy Macker, Machiir. Troy, enjoy the games this weekend, and we will talk to you on Monday.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Troy Macker with Bet Rivers. And we're brought to you by the Thibodeau Store. Also open in the Pierreport Store, open in La Rose and Lockport. Spring savings right now on all your lawn and garden essentials, up to 65% off of your potting soils and your seeders, your fertilizer. All of your lawn and garden tools are on some kind of special right now. The Do It Best deal of the week on garden carts. Also, your outdoor patio furniture, your outdoor cooking, outdoor power equipment, all of those at the website right now. You get to all 4 of the locations from one website at thethibodeaustore.com. 40% off of channel lock tools right now. So we are 1 week deep in the spring. If you're getting your property up to speed, get the tools that you need, all of the supplies that you need from the Thibodeau Store. 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodaux, open daily until 5:30 p.m. Highway 70 in Pierreport. And again, we tell you now, open in Lockport on Highway 308 and in La Rose on Main Street, your 4 locations of the Thibodeau Store. And again, thethibodeaustore.com. Live at lunch from Rufino's, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
back here at Rufino's live at lunch. Come by and see us here for lunch today. The beef egg rolls and lobster ravioli on your appetizer features, the pan-seared grouper and grilled pork chops on your entree features. Max, coming in today, you were able to see they got the billboards up, the boot-up billboards.
I saw 2 of them on the way in. I did.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around Will Wade's return and a press conference that they're not doing today because of the women's basketball game, which doesn't start till 9 o'clock tonight, but que sera, whatever. There'll be a lot of excitement around that press conference, and that's great. I don't know where they're going to do it, if they're going to do something similar to what they did the last time. There'll be a lot of excitement. I'm personally excited that Wade is coming back. I do need to say this, though, about what happened yesterday and how it went down. I wish that LSU had handled Matt McMahon's dismissal a little bit better. It was very difficult yesterday to find. It seemed like it went from, well, they hired Will Wade. Okay, well, you had to dig to see anything about Matt McMahon being dismissed. And regardless of what you feel about McMahon's record and all that, and this had to happen, okay? Personally, I think this probably should have happened 2 weeks ago right after the season, but that's just my opinion. There's no need to trample on the man's grave, okay? Professional grave here. He came. He did the best he could. It didn't work out. I wish they had put something out that would have been a little bit easier to find. Say, hey, you know what? Thank you for your service. Wish you the best. And they did, but, boy, you had to – it was kind of buried amongst it. And I get that everybody's excited and we're moving on, and that's all cool. And, like I said, I'm excited about the future under Will Wade. I don't know that they had to let McMahon twist in the wind, if he was, in fact, twisted in the wind for the last few days.
Yeah, and even if you let it, you waited to fire him, at least put out something. Put out a statement publicly. And I know Verge did put out a statement, but you have all these social accounts that are putting all this promotion and, frankly, propaganda, and fair to do so.
Sure,
of Will Wade.
That's what
you
it's
want
for.
to excite yourself.
Yeah.
You want to excite your fan base. He's going to do that. And you've already got a lot of pictures with him in LSU gear, so it's easy. The boot-up stuff is great. But at least before you do that, just put out a thank you, Matt McMahon. Just let everybody know you dismissed him before you basically didn't even fire him and you hired a new guy. I thought it was – look, we talked about Matt McMahon. It was kind of a punching bag that he was a quote-unquote nice guy, right? Yeah. But that does mean something. He was very kind and did everything right when he was here. So you can do right by him and at least publicly say thanks for your contributions. Yeah, and whether they should have fired him last year or not.
Right. He's a man with a family and a future and all. I thought they could have done a little bit better with that. That was the clumsy part. The word clumsy got used. I don't know that the rest of it was clumsy to use that part. The NC State season was over. I get it was 1 year. I get that they're bummed over there. And you know what? That was my school. I'd probably feel the same way. But season was over. He can take another job. We've talked about all the reasons why he'll take another job. It ends up being more money. The NIL budget is a floating number. Okay, I've heard a lot about that in the last 24 hours. LSU's got a rev share budget. Okay, the rev share is pretty much a flat number. That's you're part of the revenue share. Men's basketball gets about 15% of that. That was going to happen no matter who the coach was. The NIL number's a moving number because Wade's going to raise a lot of that himself. Frankly, it's one of the most attractive things about bringing him back is what he can raise. So is that number $9 million, $10 million, $11 million, $12 million? How much is that? LSU's going to help him all they can. They helped McMahon raise some of that a year ago. I don't know if you've got a bullseye target on what that number is today versus what that number is going to be a month from now. So we'll see. We know that number is going up. Live here at Rufino's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
He's out there somewhere in the world. Maybe even your local sports book.
Can anybody help us?
Let's bring in Bruce Marshall.
And return here at Rufino's. Your Friday lunch menu appetizer features the beef egg rolls and lobster ravioli with the New Orleans-style barbecue butter. Entree features include the pan-seared grouper with butternut squash puree and grilled pork chops with grilled asparagus here on Highland Road. Come on by and see us at Rufino's. Bruce, good morning where you are. How's your day going? How's your NCAA tournament going to this point?
Not too bad, though I must point out, I think I was a trendsetter here by returning to my roots. So has Will Wade, I think, because I came back to Gold Sheet. Maybe he comes back to LSU, too. So there you go. Interesting. That was some interesting stuff last night. How about this Iowa? I think that's the story right now, that they've gotten this far with Count Dracula, as I call him, Ben McCollum, my new favorite coach. And I sure liked him last year at Drake. Think about what this guy has done everywhere he's been. Northwest Missouri State, Drake, Iowa. He not only wins, I mean, he wins big. So I think, I'm not sure they can go much further than tomorrow, but this is something, and it continues this Big Ten looking really good. Illinois certainly showed up well last night, too. So I think the Big Ten has sort of been the story. Purdue, we can talk about that in a second, too. But the Big Ten continues to roll.
Nebraska leading for most of the game last night, and Iowa reeled them in at the end. And the gaffe, Bruce, I don't know that Nebraska was going to win the game, but up 3, Iowa to inbound the basketball, and Nebraska gets caught with 4 players on the floor. Fred Hoiberg's had a phenomenal year. It's the best year in the history of Nebraska basketball, but that was a big gaffe there at the end.
Yeah, it was. I can't imagine McCollum making that sort of a gaffe, but I think, Nebraska just got a little rattled there, and they were, you're right, they were ahead most of the way in that game, and Iowa just kind of reeled them in. That's what, we're kind of liking about Iowa here. Now, that was sort of the opposite in the Florida game. They had to lead on Florida most of the way, lost it, and then they regained it in the end. But the composure this team is showing, that's part of the secret recipe in the march to keep your composure, and Iowa's doing that with a team that doesn't have maybe as much, physical talent as others. But, boy, they are a resilient bunch. Sturts came up big again last night. It was interesting earlier in the sub-regional, Sturts didn't really have big games, although he certainly, made the big play in the Florida game that passed to Fulgaris in the corner and when he broke up court. On that the second thing, but they had won a few games without him posting big numbers, which was kind of different from the season. Usually it would take Sturts to have a really good game for Iowa to have a big effort, but they're finding some different ways to win, and this is McCollum's magic again. He's really, really pushing all the right buttons.
Let's move to the Saturday games before we get to the Friday games so we can stay on the same group of teams. A pair of 6.5-point spreads with Arizona and Illinois being your favorites. And, Bruce, watching Arizona again last night, not only have they beaten teams, but other than that Iowa State game, nobody's really been close to them, and I'll be interested to see what Purdue can do to stay in that game in San Jose on Saturday night. Who are your early leans here towards those 2 Elite Eight games?
Yeah, I'm still thinking Arizona here, though. I haven't come to a final conclusion yet that maybe Purdue's going to be able to slow this thing down and keep Arizona within sight here. Every time I watch Purdue, though, I can't help. When my wife watched Purdue a couple weeks ago, she said, "Are these guys Amish?" She doesn't like the beard styles of Clough and Braden Smith, so whatever that means.
Okay.
But no, Arizona's been quite a story this year, and they hit the ground running back in November with all these new guys, and that's what really strikes me about Arizona. There was never any, adjustment phase for them. They just started off really good, and I think they have fewer flaws. I can't find any flaws in this team than any team in the tournament. So it would take something for me to vote against Arizona here, though you'd be going against the Big Ten, which has been, a pretty big tournament. But, man, they looked really good. In Arkansas, I was surprised that they destroyed Arkansas like that. I really thought Calipari would keep that much more competitive, but I mean, Purdue will pay more attention on the defensive end than Arkansas. I think that's for sure.
All right, let's get to the games tonight. Four more games. Teams punching their ticket to the Elite Eight. We started off with St. John's and Duke. We finish up with Tennessee and Iowa State. And still the uncertainty for Iowa State and Joshua Jefferson, their second leading scorer, who is listed as a game-time decision.
Yeah, let's talk about that one first because that is important. And you can see that Iowa State, could beat a team like Kentucky without Jefferson. I'm not sure they can do it against Tennessee here. The Iowa State is awfully good, and their ability to create points off turnovers and what they can do with Lipsy and the backcourt and the shooters. Bumsilovic is the top 3-point shooter in the country. There's a lot of ways they can beat you, but Jefferson is still a very, very unique weapon, and to be minus him, that's going to be a problem. Tennessee, look, they're hanging around again, and the history of Tennessee, and certainly with Rick Barnes too, Sweet 16s have not been the problem for them. The problem has been in the Elite Eight. They've never gotten to the Final Four, but they have gotten on the verge of it before, and that's where they're at again here. They've got two game winners there in Gillespie and Ament, and this is a top 15 defense. If Jefferson doesn't play, and I hate to base everything upon him, I think this is going to be a pretty tough go for Iowa State tonight. So I would probably lean to Tennessee there. St. John's, well, Rick Pitino gets another shot at Duke here. I guess he's had a couple of other ones, but 34 years on from Christian Laettner in the Elite Eight. When I watch St. John's this year, I've always been a bit amazed that Pitino could have maneuvered this thing to only lose one of the last 22 games. Now, that one was pretty ugly, that game they couldn't shoot against UConn, that 0-for-24 stretch. And that somehow keeps popping up in my mind when I think of St. John's because they are not a great shooting team. But, man, they are tough, and they will turn this into a Big East-style grinder if they can. Let's see if Duke can play that way. And Gongba coming back, he only played 13 minutes against TCU last week, but he'll play more tonight, and I think that's very important for Duke. That relieves Boozer from playing the whole game at the 5, and he is not going to, that's out of his comfort zone, certainly as a rim protector on defense. So having the other big in there is going to be good. But Foster's still hurting. Point guard, that is still a negative for Duke, and I have thought as long as he's out, that's going to be an issue for the Blue Devils to go the whole way. I'm going to take St. John's plus. I'm not sure they can win this game outright, but I think Pitino can ugly it up, and Ejiofor and the others are going to make it very difficult on Boozer down low. This is going to be tough for Duke.
Tennessee plus 4.5 and St. John's plus 6.5. Your picks, those are numbers here at our local affiliate with DraftKings and Bally's and the Queen. All right, I think I can count on you for an unbiased opinion on Will Wade because as far as I know, you don't love him or hate him. It seems like everybody else in the world either loves him or hates him. So I want to just get an unbiased opinion from you, Bruce, on Will Wade and the events that transpired to get him back to LSU.
Does he like the Dodgers? Because then I would hate him. But other than that,
as far as I know, he's got no favorite baseball team in California. So
okay,
no,
then I'm fine with him then. Then I'm fine with him then. Well, I must say, I mean, I'm thinking, let's let bygones be bygones. It's a little odd. I'm trying to think of an example of another coach who had to leave a job because, got hit by the NC2A and then coming back to the same place where he had to leave because of that. The only one that comes to mind, John Robinson at USC, although when he left the first time, they didn't push him out. I mean, he left on his own accord. They didn't fire him until the second time, but he did come back to a place that he left on probation. So it's a little odd, but I think because the McMahon thing just didn't work so spectacularly there, and they were if that thing didn't work so badly, they wouldn't be looking for a new coach. They decided to give it a shot, and what he did at McNeese and got the NC State propped up this year. I don't know. I'm a little surprised, but this day and age, maybe not. I mean, I'm certainly some of the stuff that got Wade maybe in trouble before would not this time. So why not? They want to win. That's the name of the game. I think this guy can win, and that's just the way it goes in college sports now. I guess I'm not surprised.
I'll throw you named, and this wasn't an NCAA thing. We had this yesterday. We had to look it up. I didn't remember this guy at all. You probably will because you're you. Ronnie Arrow at the University of South Alabama, the last coach to be fired and then rehired by the same school. And you got to go back. You got to go back some 30 years on that. So, yes, it's quite unusual to have that happen. Doesn't happen very often. So. Anyway,
that is going back with Ronnie Arrow. I do remember that now, but I wouldn't have recalled that if you didn't bring it up.
We had to look that one up. Didn't have it. Bruce, as always, we appreciate it. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk to you next. Jimmy will be back next week. We'll talk to you then.
Have fun. Thank you much.
All right, thanks a lot. Bruce Marshall back now with the goal sheet. See, you can go home again, Max.
Good to know. I mean, apparently you can't do that because it would be disloyal to your current institution. It would be, terrible because Bill Self is lauded, even though he has more level 1 violations in the same investigation. It's just terrible. You can't do that.
There are any number of sanctimonious members of the media that are not going to cut him a break. Just look at who's playing right now. Okay, Arkansas played last night. John Calipari had to vacate all of the wins that he had before he got to Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. Kelvin Sampson was fired for NCAA violations at Indiana. You go through to tonight. Rick Pitino's, whatever you want to call it, his resume is littered with NCAA stuff and even worse than NCAA stuff. Bruce Pearl, who's on TV last night spouting about loyalty to coach. Now he was talking about Hubert Davis, but I'm sorry, multiple stops with him. So listen, it's a sport that it ain't for the meek at heart, okay? And you're gonna have to probably. I don't want to say offend, but there's probably going to be some hurt feelings along the way somewhere. I wish everything was clean and neat and tidy, but it doesn't work that way. You've had a couple of guys here that came here and it was neat and it was tidy and nobody ever got to finish, and they finished last. I'm sorry, they finished last. Two different coaches. I've seen how that works. So. Am I delighted about how it all played out? No, I wish it would have been a little bit smoother, but I'm tired of watching teams. I'm tired of basketball not mattering after Christmas. We went through that long list yesterday of, hey, if you don't if you don't try to play the game the way that it's played, and every time LSU hires a coach, doesn't even matter the sport, it's always about, hey, is this going to work? Do we know that? You know that this guy can be successful here. That's not. It's just a matter of what degree. We'll take a break. We'll talk to somebody who knows a little bit about coaching basketball at LSU. Former coach John Brady will join us when we come back here. Live at Rufino's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Otten Hanny from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back here at Rufino's live at lunch, and we appreciate Coach John Brady taking some time out of his warm-ups for his golf round this afternoon to visit with us a little bit. Coach, I know you enjoying the good weather, so hey, man, thanks for spending a few minutes. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm about to tee off in about 15 minutes at the dunes on Sanibel Island down here by Fort Myers. Beautiful.
I wish we were there. It sounds like a pretty good way to spend the afternoon. Coach, give us your thoughts on the events of the last 24 hours. Matt McMahon out and Will Wade in as head basketball coach.
Well, this thing's been rumored. I heard it all year from different people, and depending on, which side you were listening to. But my take on this the whole time was I don't like to see coaches get fired. But this day and age when you're paying coaches big money, you're paying players big money, the expectation levels rise and the patient level lowers. So it's just the nature of the business. But, I don't like to see coaches get let go. But my whole take on this, if they were going to make a change, which is above my pay grade, and they decided to make a change, you saw the dominoes lining up, for Will to come back and of the people that they hired. And my take on Will Wade, that there's not a coach they could have hired that can unite the fan base, get the fan base excited, and put a coach in there like Will, who made a lot of friends here in Baton Rouge, that has the opportunity to raise and increase the NIL dollars that are given to support the program. He's the only guy that could do that, and they've done it. And I'm sure locally you've seen a response of a lot of positiveness with the fan base. You're going to see an opportunity for him to go out and raise money. And one thing that Will is, in my opinion, I think he's extremely smart. I think he's real savvy. I think he can evaluate talent, and I think he can put together a team that it wouldn't surprise me if we go to the NCAA tournament next year.
Coach, we hear a lot about budgets and resources. What, in your opinion, do you need to be successful? What type of budget is realistic? We hear about underfunded, or we talk about Kentucky's $22 million. What do you need? What is required to be a successful program in this league?
See, I think we're going to have $2.8 million of the revenue share that LSU is going to put aside. Then I think realistically anywhere between 10 and 12 million on top of that, and get yourself around 12 million, and I think you can be really good with that kind of money spent. Now, the other thing, nobody really knows who is getting paid what and how much money that people have actually raised. I wish they would publish what every player is getting paid, how much, whether it's from NIL or the collective agreement, the 2.8 revenue sharing. I wish it was public, because if the fans are going to pay extra money to fund and support the team, and we're moving toward a pro model, I think it ought to be exposed. Everybody should know what everybody's making, and then it makes it easier to recruit. You don't know if these agents are telling you the truth on what a player is making or not. But I think the key to it in this transfer portal era, you have to be able to evaluate. You have to know who can play and who can't. I think one of the biggest drawbacks of our present staff, we didn't have a first-team all-league player in 4 years, and we didn't have a draft pick. And we've got other teams in the league that are running around with 2 or 3 draft picks starting on their teams. So I think Will Wade can get the talent level comparable, and then the coaching makes a difference. And I think he's going to put a staff together, and with him as the head coach, it's like I said before, Charlie, it wouldn't surprise me if we go to the NCAA tournament next year.
I realize you don't have to worry about this particular problem anymore, but if you were putting a roster together now, how would you allocate your resources? How much time and money would you put into high school recruiting? How much into the transfer portal? Is it better to go out and get that one superstar guy and build around him, or would you spread it out? In your opinion, how would you go about building a roster now?
I would certainly have to get me 2 or 3 guys that I think could be drafted, and whatever the dollars takes to get a couple of those, I would do that first. You've got to have those type of players, and then a couple of high school players I think are always important. Depending on how good they are and what you project them to be once you coach them. But as some of the best players in the SEC this year were freshmen. I mean, there's going to be 6 or 8 freshmen drafted this year out of the SEC. So this notion that freshmen can't play is a hoax. Now, you may have to pay them more to get them, but certainly at the end of the day, I think they're worth it. But you look at the teams that are left now, Charlie, there's a lot of teams now that have retention. A lot of these teams that are still playing have 2 and 3 starters back from a year ago. So I think that's important. Now, I think what builds retention is built by winning. But I think Will can do that. I think he can get players in. I think he can flip this roster in a quick way. I think he can evaluate, which is the key. But I think having returning players as Will moves into this thing can be important because you look at the teams that are still playing. A lot of them have players that have been there a couple years, some players that have been there 3 years.
Last thing, and I'll let you get to the first tee. What's unique about this job? You sat in that chair for a long time. What's unique about this job? Pluses or minuses, challenges, advantages? What's unique about this job? What makes it different, if anything, from the other jobs in the league?
I think the fan base is great. I think you put a winner out there, they'll support you and they'll be passionate about it. But at the same time, I say this all the time. I said it to you. The best thing about LSU is the fans. But the worst thing about LSU is the fans because they can turn on you quick now if you're not competitive, you don't put a quality team out there. But you know, I think some of those qualities of LSU are different now because of the transfer portal and the money that they're paying players. I think the loyalty to the state school isn't what it used to be, and I think players now are more likely to cross state lines than they were when I was sitting in that seat. You know, we made a living off Louisiana players. That hadn't been the case lately. They get them from everywhere because of NIL, transfer portal, and the money that's thrown around.
There's fewer of them, too. The really highly rated guys. You recruited some really highly rated guys out of Louisiana. There have been a lot fewer. I don't know why that is, but by the numbers, Coach, there's been a lot less of those superstars in Louisiana of late.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion about why that's happened. But, you know, I was fortunate in that regard. I won't deny that. And at that time, it was something to wear that purple and gold, be from Louisiana, and put LSU across the chest. I don't think it's that important now. And there are some advantages to that because players will cross state lines for NIL dollars if they're distributed in the right way and if you recruit the right people.
Hit them long and straight, Coach, and we'll enjoy having you back here real soon.
I appreciate it, Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Coach John Brady with his thoughts about Will Wade returning to LSU. We're brought to you by Louisiana Health and Injury Centers. Are you in pain? Is something hurting? Because when that happens, man, it seems like it's all you can think about. You'll do just about anything to relieve that pain, if it's back pain, if it's neck pain, if it's muscle soreness, if it's those things that are keeping you from getting around as well as you'd like, or if it's keeping you from getting a good night's sleep. Let Dr. Michael Goff and his staff do for you what they've done for our family a number of times and in different situations, get you to feeling better. Maybe it's just something as simple as getting into an exercise and stretching program with those problems. Sometimes it's a dry needle or electric nerve stimulation, cryo or ultrasound therapy. They can get you to feeling better. They've done it for us a number of times. Airline Highway, Plank Road, Jefferson Highway near Drusilla. Dr. Michael Goff, Louisiana Health and Injury Centers. We'll take a break here live at Ruffino's, live at Lunch 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Odd and Hanny from Rufino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And return here at Rufino's. Charles Hannah, and Max Gotro. Jimmy Ott has the day off. He'll be back with us on Monday. We bring in Ace Seminara to give us some guidance here on a couple of the games tonight and an afternoon baseball game. Ace, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing fantastic. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. It's good night last night on the hardwood for us, and talked to you earlier in the week, gave us the Yankees on opening day, and afternoon baseball from San Francisco today, the Yankees and the Giants, and you're looking at the pinstripes again today.
I am, yeah. And before we get into it, I'd like to offer all your listeners an opportunity to get involved on my free pick service. Real easy. Just text the word free picks to 631-805-6165. Punch it into your phone. Save it now. Maybe you're driving. Punch it in, 631-805-6165. You text the word free picks. That's it. You'll get my top-rated daily picks every day. Now that baseball's in the mix, right? Could be baseball. Could be basketball. We're winding down the last few weeks before the seeds are set. Want to avoid the get-in games from 8 to 10. Other teams literally have their bags packed. There's money to be made with those teams. And then obviously the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 games. So great time of the year. And yeah, great afternoon matchup today. Had the Yankees the other day, 7-0 game. Easy victory for them. Judge 0 for 5 in game 1 with 4 strikeouts, but that's okay. He's facing Robbie Ray today. 3 for 8 in his career against Robbie Ray. What do you think those 3 balls did? They all left the park. I would absolutely expect Judge to get right back on track today. And Cam Schlittler, be careful with that name, especially when we're on air. Cam Schlittler, who is certainly not afraid of the big moment. Remember him last year facing his old childhood team, the Red Sox, in the playoffs in Yankee Stadium. Lit him up. 8 shutout innings, struck out 12, and then put up another solid outing the next game in the playoffs against the Blue Jays, who eventually went to the World Series. So he's certainly not afraid of the moment. I expect the Yankees to put up another victory today. You know, funny situation there with the Giants. First-time coach there. All right, Tony Vitello, you guys will remember him down there because everybody's, baseball crazy down there in your area, neck of the woods, SEC country. But he led the Vols to the 2024 championship. The first coach that has ever gone from college to be the head manager in Major League Baseball without any professional experience whatsoever. We'll see how that goes, obviously. Certainly not going to go by the first night when they put up a lousy 3 hits against Max Fried. But again, their lineup is limited. The Yankees are stacked. Get on the Yankees with Cam Schlittler, -125 this afternoon.
Yeah, we're quite familiar with Mr. Vitello down here. He played the villain's role pretty well in the Southeastern Conference. That's some really, really good teams at Tennessee, though. Heck of a baseball coach. Not very popular in these parts. So let's jump onto the hardwood tonight. You like in Game 1 in the Capital One Center in Washington. St. John's and Duke, our local affiliate here at Bally's in the Queen, is still Duke is a 6.5-point favorite in this game.
6.5. Yeah, hasn't really moved all week long. I think it kind of tells you that there's kind of equal money coming in on the games because obviously, the sports books, they're not going to just, take action in on one side without moving it. So it's been evenly. I think the odds makers think that they have the odds set correctly. I personally believe that this game is way off. I don't see this being more than a one-possession game. Foster being out for Duke, if he does come back, he's practiced all week. It's going to be a game-time decision as per what Coach Sires mentioned. But they've had issues with bringing up the ball. Caden Boozer's done a tremendous job, but now having to put pressure and have Cameron Boozer bring it up as well. The amount of ball pressure that St. John's puts on the ball, you saw other teams in the tournament that were unable to even just inbound it. Kansas couldn't even inbound the ball. Now, they came back from a 14-point deficit. Tremendous comeback by them. And then Dylan Darling. Everybody's darling now in New York. I mean, the sports pages are on kooky with his name. Victory, with that victory there at the buzzer to make that shot, they're a deep team. They play 9 guys deep. Let's not forget about the Zubi Ejiofor, the Big East player of the year, who I think is going to kind of cancel out Cameron Boozer. I would not be shocked if that's an even matchup whatsoever. Ruben Prey, backup center, 6'10", already promised by Rick Pitino to take over as the center next year. He's earned it. That guy's a physical player. And then you got Hopkins and Mitchell as well. They're a very physical team. I expect St. John's, who Rick Pitino, by the way, 12-1 in Sweet 16 games in his career. 6-2 as an underdog of 5 points or more in that situation. So give me Rick Pitino and all the experience in big games and a deeper team. Right now, Duke is barely playing 7 guys. Even if Caleb Forster does come back with that injured ankle, the pressure's not going to stop from the time they get off the bus. Give me St. John's in the 6.5 points, and I wouldn't be shocked if they win the game outright, but certainly to cover that spread.
All right, let's move to the final game of the night, Tennessee and Iowa State. Bally's in the Queen here locally have Iowa State a 4.5-point favorite. And we are going to monitor this situation with Joshua Jefferson being called a game-time decision, the second leading scorer for Iowa State. And you like in this game the under the total in this game.
Total was 138.5. Shockingly jumped up to 140.5. And again, just a reminder to all your listeners out there, free text service, 631-805-6165. Text me to that number. We don't have to speak. I'll text you the free picks. That's it. You're looking for help? No reason to go about it on your own. There's a lot of games out there right now you're not sure what to do. You're not sure if a coach is actually going to have 5 players on the court. You want to make sure that those things are going to happen, right? So text me. I can't really help you to make sure with that, but I got confidence that Coach Otzelberger and Coach Barnes are going to know to get 5 players on the court tonight. And that game is going to be a defensive game. All right, you got some three-point shooters there on Tennessee, Boswell and Gillespie, but other than that, they're going to try to pound it in down low to Carey. Looks like he should be playing football. Arnett, obviously, is a solid shooter. But they're 281 in free throw percentage, number 194 in the country in three-point percentage. They turn it over, Tennessee, on 17% of their possessions. And let's see, Iowa State, number 4 in the country on turnover percentage. So I expect a totally defensive game right here. Lipsy, Ture, Momcilovic, Heisey, those guys have been playing outstanding basketball. Whether Jefferson comes back or not, defense is what that team is built on. 2 defensive teams grinding this game out. I can't see this approaching the 140 anywhere near that. Get on the under 140.5. And again, there's other options out there for tonight, the Elite 8 games tomorrow, baseball, NBA. Text me to 631-805-6165. All I want to be able to do is help you guys during this time of the season when a lot of people out there might be making mistakes. Text me. I'll be more than happy to help you. 631-805-6165.
You looking around last night for Gene Hackman, God rest his soul, when Nebraska had 4 players on the court?
My team's on the floor. That's exactly what I said. Yeah, that's exactly what came to me. Coach Norman Dale telling him my team's on the floor because he sat the other kid that didn't want to listen to him. I've never seen it anywhere else. Have you ever seen that anywhere else happen in any sport you've ever seen where the team literally didn't have enough players on the court after a timeout, which is even more shocking?
Well, I've seen teams foul out enough players to only have 4 on the court. A couple of times, high school games mostly, but no, not at. Yeah, not at that level. Not at that. And I've seen a fight have enough players ejected to where they didn't have 5 on the floor, but not when they had 5 available. No, that only happens in the movies. So, Ace, we appreciate.
And after you made a 3, to cut it to 3, and then you call a timeout. You can tell the anger in my voice. Hey, I had Nebraska last night. Just a shocking loss, winning the entire game until the last 2 minutes. But give kudos to Iowa. They kept playing. It seemed like Nebraska just kept trying to resort on shooting some really, really long threes, and then just inexcusable for Coach Hoiberg. Inexcusable. After a timeout and a TV timeout, that you don't get 5 players on the court, and how the referees allowed that. I don't think I've ever seen that before in my life either. They're supposed to be saying, hey, guys, get on the court here. We're going to inbound the ball. But that didn't seem to happen. Anyway, best of luck to all your listeners out there. Let's have a great weekend.
Thank you, Ace. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Not the kind of mistake you expect Fred Hoiberg to make after the year that he has had. LSU has announced that the Will Wade introductory press conference will be on Monday, noon, in the PMAC, and the event is open to the public. So that'll be fun. The event starts at noon, and the public is invited. So. Last time he was in the Union, and they had I believe was it free pizza, free burgers, some kind of free food that they brought to entice the students, and they got a hell of a turnout. We didn't go, but because we were on the air, which is going to be the case again on Monday, but we watched, and it was a heck of an atmosphere. Now I went to Kim Mulkey's at the PMAC, and that was open to the public too, and that drew. I'm just going to guess somewhere around 3,000 or 4,000 people, something. If I'm remembering right, we were down on the floor. She came out with the smoke machines and the big show and everything, and it was a really upbeat, big event, and that was kind of still in the COVID restriction era, because I remember she whipped the mask off and said, "I'm gonna get rid of this mask and talk." I would expect a pretty good crowd. I know it's in the middle of the day and a lot of people, but just the students, you would think. Going to be a happening event, I would say, on Monday.
I think so. He did a good job in the student union the first time, embracing and kind of getting
the
whole thing started.
He fed them
right away, and that's something that he initiated a lot of ways. They fed a lot of students throughout his time here. They would, first 1,000 students get free, whatever, fast food, pizza, whatever.
Students like free stuff, especially free food.
And they'll show up for that, for sure. So I'm really excited for this press conference because he very much set a high bar for himself when he got here the first time around. He would say, look, we're going to be contending. I want to say in the spring game he might have said he was going to make the Final Four in his first 5 years, which he didn't do. I guess they only had 4 tournaments while he was here. But to me, the expectations for him should be much higher than it would be for anyone else. I mean, that's why you brought him in here. So I get making the tournament gets everybody excited around here. Like, that's enough for the basketball team. But for me, I'm going to grade him on, is this team contending for Sweet 16s every year? You don't have to make it every year. It's hard to do that. Even a 1 seed didn't make it this year. But to me, you're bringing him in, and he should embrace a higher standard than even I think the fan base has for him right now.
I think the bar is going to be set pretty high by him. I think that when you talk about making the tournament every year is an expectation. It needs to be higher than that. It was for I went through this yesterday. In the 80s, that was the expectation, and into the 90s, into the 93 season, they had made it into the postseason every year from the late 70s all the way to 93. There were a couple of NITs in there after the Final Four, because the Final Four team was senior laden in 81. Ethan Martin was a senior on that team. Rudy Macklin was a senior on that team. Greg Cook was a senior on that team. Willie Sims was a senior on that team. And so they kind of had to rebuild it around Howard Carter and Leonard Mitchell in 82 and 83. So they went to the NIT. And then you got into the 84 season. They were good. The 85 team won the SEC. The 86 team made the Final Four. The 87 team made the Elite Eight. And Dale kept going to tournaments. They got through the Shaquille era. They didn't have a lot of success in the tournament in that era. They made it every year. And in 93 was Gerd Hammock's final season. He was Shaq's backup. He ended up being a number 1 pick of the Orlando Magic. He was SEC Player of the Year in 93. They made the tournament. They lost to Jason Kidd and Cal. And after that, when Randy Livingston and Ronnie Henderson were coming in, and Livingston, who was if you didn't see Randy Livingston play basketball in high school, I've never seen a better high school basketball player in this state in person myself. Blew out, had the catastrophic knee injury, was never really the same, and Dale was never the same after that. When they lost Henderson, or when they lost Livingston, Henderson had to carry the load by himself, and it just was they didn't have enough, and that's when Dale retired. They had the whole Lester Earl fiasco, and then when John Brady came in, he was faced with what was a really serious probation at the time. You couldn't rebuild at that time the way you can now. The transfer portal obviously wasn't in place. To transfer, you had to sit out a year. They had a rule that you could only take 5 players in any one recruiting class and 8 over 2 years. The 5 and 8 rule made rebuilding. It took them 3 years basically to get back. So when I say the tournament, man, from that point on, for the last 4 coaches, man, outside of Will Wade, making the tournament was the outlier. So that's my expectations were lowered a little bit. With Wade coming back, they'll be higher. He admonished me the last time he came here. I said, hey, look, if you double the amount of wins, you'll get 4 next year. That's how low my expectations were at the time. He's like, we're going to do better than that.
I want more of that.
This time I'll know. I'll know to ask for more. I think it will be. We'll come back and wrap things up here at Ruffino's live at lunch. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live at lunch with Odd and Hanny from Ruffino's on Highland Road on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
News from the NCAA tournament. Tracy Wolfson, who I believe is working the sideline in this game tonight between St. John's and Duke, reporting that Caleb Foster is going to play tonight, barring any setback in pregame. He's less than 3 weeks post-surgery, so they're not expecting a lot of minutes out of him. But he is expected to be able to play tonight against St. John's. So good news if you are a Duke fan that they will get him back tonight. Max, what's going on in Houston at the golf tournament, the Texas Children's Houston Open?
Really cool story here. Perhaps on pace here. Gary Woodland, currently the leader, has a 2-shot lead over Minwoo Lee, the defending champion, at 11 under par. He's on the 17th hole. No pressure, Gary. I parred that hole last year. But he announced recently, earlier this month at the Players, that he's dealing with PTSD. He had a brain tumor removed, surgery, and apparently that is a somewhat common consequence of that surgery. He opened up and said it was nice for him to get that off his shoulders. He was kind of hiding that, but there are certain moments on the course during rounds that startle him, and it really affects him. So
he was very candid about it.
Very much so, and he's always been one of the more popular players, one of the more well-liked players, not among just fans, but also his cohorts, his players, the media there as well. So he has a 2-shot lead on the 17th hole. He's had a lot of success here in the past. He was pre-tournament 94-1 at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Our friends at Bally's now have him at plus 320. So plus 320 to favorite Gary Woodland. As I mentioned, 2-shot lead over the defending champion Minwoo Lee. But we've also got some guys in the mix that we gave out on Wednesday. We heard Wes Reynolds gave up Michael Thorbjornsen. He's in solo third at 8 under par. I gave up Adam Scott, who's 7 under par. He's done for the day in the second round. And Sam Burns was also mentioned. He is yet to go off, so he's got some ground to catch up with. He is 5 under. He tees off actually right now. So Sam Burns tied for 10th at 5 under par. So we've got some guys this week at the Houston Open.
Who are you liking the games tonight?
I am going to go with Tennessee. Tennessee's probably my favorite play tonight. I think they win this game outright. I really like their offense. This is not a traditional Rick Barnes team that preaches defense first, but I like them against Iowa State, whether Jefferson plays or not. I think he'll be hobbled and affected at least in some capacity. And then I guess I'll take the points with St. John's. Too much volatility with Alabama to bet them. And Sparty, I lean to Sparty, but they do better in these March moments where they have less time to prepare, 48-hour turnaround. I think Hurley will have some things ready. So I lean Sparty, but not going to bet that game either.
Ken Palm likes them, right?
They have them favored. They have them as a 1-point favorite in this game, which is interesting because the line is now 1.5, 2.5 in favor of UConn.
It's actually ticked up here in the last 30 minutes. UConn is 2.5 right now at DraftKings. Thanks to everybody for participating. Thanks, of course, to our friends here at Rufino's. Pan-seared grouper and grilled pork chops on your entree features, beef egg rolls and lobster ravioli. Here are your appetizer features at Rufino's. On Monday, we are at Big Mike Sports Bar and Grill in Denham Springs, and we'll have the Will Wade press conference. Feels pretty good to say. The introductory press conference is at noon on Monday, and the PMAC will have that for you. From Max, for Jordan back in the studio, I'm Charles Hanniger saying thank you and good afternoon. Stay tuned for Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.